Hey, how's it going? My name is Wes. Welcome back to another lesson. In today's lesson, we have another Green Fundamentals lesson, part number 7 out of 10. So as always, in these Green Fundamentals lessons, we will learn words and phrases that are very common in the Spanish language. Alright, so today's lessons, Fundamentals, part 7, let's dive right into it. Alright, so the first word that we will learn in today's lesson is
demasiado, demasiado,
which means too much or too many. So, for example, there are too many people. Hay demasiada gente. Hay demasiada gente. And we use demasiada with an A because gente is actually a feminine noun. So, la gente, the people. So, hay demasiada gente. There are too many people.
hay demasiada gente, hay demasiada gente, demasiado, demasiada,
Alright, the next word is
sobre, sobre,
which means about or on. So, for example, information about the journey.
información sobre el viaje, información sobre el viaje,
Alright, then the next two words that we will learn are actually expressions in Spanish. The first one is
espera, espera,
which means wait. So, for example, if someone says, let's go now, and you want to say wait, then you can say espera, espera, or espera un momento, which means wait a moment. So, espera means wait. And then another expression which is very commonly used in Spanish is mira, which means look.
mira, mira,
So, for example, when you see a special bird flying by, you want to say, ah, mira, like, ah, look. So, mira, look, and espera, wait.
mira, espera,
Alright, then the next word we will learn in today's lesson is verdad, which means truth, or de verdad, the truth.
verdad, de verdad,
And this word, verdad, or de verdad, is actually not used as a literal translation of the truth, but it's also often being used to make a sentence either a statement or a question. So, for example, I'm very grateful, really.
estoy muy agradecido, de verdad. Estoy muy agradecido, de verdad.
I'm very grateful, really. Or I'm truly very grateful. So, de verdad, the truth. Alright, then the next word we will learn in today's lesson is lindo or linda. Again, as always, depending on if you're talking about a masculine or feminine noun. So, lindo for masculine and linda for feminine.
Lindo, linda,
And a translation for lindo or linda means something along the lines of pretty or nice or beautiful. So, as an example, let's look at the decoration. So if you would want to say the decoration is very pretty, you would say
la decoración es muy linda. La decoración es muy linda.
and lindo or linda can also be used to describe people, so it's not just objects, but not necessarily in a romantic way. And another saying you might hear in Spanish, and it depends on which country you're in, might be like que lindo, which means like how pretty or how beautiful.
Qué lindo.
So lindo or linda, pretty, nice, or beautiful. And then we have another word which describes pretty or beautiful, which is bonito or bonita. So you could also say, for example, qué bonito or qué bonita, which basically means the same thing. And again, it depends on which country you're in and the context of the sentence itself, obviously.
Bonito. Bonita.
Alright, let's move on to the next sentence, which is
Estoy de acuerdo. Estoy de acuerdo.
which means I agree. I agree. And de acuerdo by its own means something like agreed in English.
De acuerdo.
So it's usually used as sort of like a confirmation for something. So for example, if I asked you at what time should I come and you tell me you should come at 8, and then to confirm, I could, for example, say something like
Vengo a las 8. ¿De acuerdo?
which means like I come at 8, right? Or I come at 8, agreed?
Vengo a las 8. ¿De acuerdo?
So de acuerdo means something like agreed, and estoy de acuerdo. So estoy from the verb estar, which means I am. So I am agreeing, pretty much. So I agree in English.
Estoy de acuerdo. De acuerdo.
All right, the next word is una vez, which means once or one time.
Una vez. Una vez.
If you want to say in Spanish, it's better, then we say
Es mejor. Es mejor.
So for example, sometimes in a sentence, you might hear someone say, es mejor que, which means it's better than or it's better that.
Es mejor.
If you want to say it's the same or it's equal, then a Spanish translation for this is actually pretty similar to equal, es igual. So it's equal or it's the same.
Es igual. Es igual.
And you can also use this as a way of saying, like, I don't really mind, or I don't really have a preference. So if someone asks you, do you want this or that, or do you prefer this or that, you can say, es igual, as a way of saying, I don't really mind, I don't really bother, it's the same to me.
Es igual.
All right, then the last two words of today's lesson. The first one is to enjoy or have fun.
Disfrutar. Disfrutar.
So for example, if someone says, I'm going on vacation, then you can say disfruta. And we say it without an R here because disfrutar is the whole verb, but of course we need to conjugate it. So we leave out the R and we are just left with disfruta. All right, and then the last word of today's lesson is
Hacerlo. Hacerlo.
And we've already actually seen this before when we learned about the word or using the word lo as a way of saying it. But in today's lesson, I want to go over this word once more because it's a very commonly used word in Spanish. So hacerlo is to do it or to make it. So hacer, to do or to make, and lo, it, so to do it or to make it. Hacerlo.
Hacerlo.
So for example, voy a hacerlo mañana means I'm going to do it or I'm going to make it tomorrow.
Voy a hacerlo mañana. Voy a hacerlo mañana.
Alright, and that's the end of this green fundamentals lessons. Now, the fundamentals in Spanish, these green lessons and these words and phrases that we learn in these green lessons are pretty important to know in Spanish because you will come across them very often. So I really highly recommend you to learn and study these words before you move on to the next lesson. Alright, that's it for this lesson. Now again, as always, you can download the PDF reference sheet to today's lesson, which has all of the words and phrases that we went over today in one single PDF file. As always, I hope that this lesson was helpful to you. I hope you got something out of this. And of course, I hope to see you in the next lesson. Adios.